Have you ever felt like your life isn't collapsing? It's just quietly drifting in a direction you never consciously chose. Do you know someone who keeps saying, "One day things will change," but that day never arrives? There's a level of dissatisfaction that doesn't look dramatic from the outside. Bills are paid, responsibilities handled, smiles performed, but inside, something feels unfinished. Most people believe transformation requires motivation, a breakthrough moment, a surge of inspiration at 2 a.m. They try willpower, they download new apps, they promise themselves that Monday will be different. For a few days they feel powerful, then life returns to normal. The old habits win, the drift continues. In Japanese philosophy, there are 3 ideas that challenge this entire approach: Ketsudan, which means decisive determination; Kaizen, which means continuous improvement; and Shinrai, which means self-trust. These are not motivation hacks. They are identity systems. This is not about forcing yourself to try harder. It is about becoming someone different through one decision. There is a catch. The decision that changes your life is usually the one your ego resists the most. If this speaks to you, subscribe and activate the notification bell. Like and share this video with someone who feels stuck. Comment the one decision you've been avoiding. I read every comment. Your engagement helps this reach someone who needs it. Now, back to the video. It was that quiet dissatisfaction that followed Ethan Morales home every night. At 12:47 a.m., the blue light of his phone lit up his apartment in downtown Chicago. The city outside was silent except for the distant hum of traffic on Lakeshore Drive. Ethan lay flat on his back, scrolling. One more video. One more article. One more how to change your life clip. He told himself the same sentence he had repeated for years. Tomorrow will be different. He was 32. A marketing analyst with a stable salary, a gym membership he used 3 times a month, and a relationship that felt more like an obligation than a choice. On paper, he was doing fine. Normal people would call this balance, stability, being realistic. But Ethan felt exhausted. He had been about to start a side business for 5 years, about to have a serious conversation with his girlfriend, about to wake up earlier and take control of his mornings. The pattern never changed. Hesitate, delay, feel guilty, try again, repeat. He told himself he just needed more motivation. What he did not see yet was this. Drift is not dramatic failure. It is repeated indecision. The absence of a decision becomes a decision. By refusing to choose differently, he was choosing the same life every single day. And the cost was invisible. For now, the cost became visible in the smallest possible way. 3 days later, at 9:18 p.m., Ethan looked down at his phone and felt his stomach tighten. 12 missed calls, all from his mother. 1 voicemail. He pressed play. Her voice was soft. "Hey Migo, I know you're busy, just wanted to hear your voice today." He froze. It was her birthday. He had meant to call earlier. He had even thought about it that morning. But he had spent the afternoon rushing to finish a report he had delayed for 2 weeks. Procrastination had turned a simple task into a late-night emergency. Again, he called her back, apologized, blamed work. She forgave him easily. That almost made it worse. After the call ended, he sat alone on the edge of his bed. No scrolling, no distraction, just silence. For the first time, he saw the loop clearly. Hesitation led to avoidance. Avoidance created pressure. Pressure produced guilt. Guilt sparked temporary motivation. Motivation faded, and the cycle restarted. A behavioral psychologist at Stanford University, who had studied habits for 18 years, discovered that avoidance patterns do more than shape behavior. They reshape identity. The brain begins to believe, "This is who you are." Ethan felt that sentence land heavily. He was not just someone who procrastinated. He was becoming someone who could not be trusted. The real cost of indecision was not missed deadlines. It was identity erosion. The next afternoon, Ethan left the office earlier than usual. His chest still carried the heaviness from the night before. He walked without direction, hands in his coat pockets, until he stopped in front of a small workshop he had passed for years but never entered. The sign above the door read simply, "Sato Restoration." Inside, the air smelled like cedar and varnish. An older man stood over a workbench, sanding the curved leg of an antique chair with steady, deliberate strokes. He looked up but did not smile immediately. He just observed. "Can I help you?" the man asked calmly. "I was just looking," Ethan replied, already embarrassed. The man nodded. Most people are. His name was Kenji Sato, 58, Japanese-American. He restored furniture the way a surgeon handles instruments, slow, precise, intentional. Ethan found himself returning the next day, and the next. On the third visit, Kenji finally asked, "Why do you really come here?" Ethan hesitated. "I don't know, it's quiet." Kenji wiped his hands and looked directly at him. "When did you decide to become someone who hesitates?" The question hit harder than expected. "I didn't decide that." Kenji tilted his head slightly. "Every identity begins with a decision, even the decision not to decide." Then, unexpectedly, Kenji shared his own story. In his 30s, he had owned a small import business. He delayed one difficult financial decision for months. He told himself he was being careful. The business collapsed. "I thought I was protecting myself," he said softly. "I was protecting my fear." For the first time, Ethan felt understood, not judged. Trust was forming, and the lesson had quietly begun. The following evening, Ethan returned to the workshop with a question already forming in his mind. Kenji was selecting a long plank of walnut wood, running his fingers slowly along its surface. "You measure first," Kenji said without looking up. "Always measure first." He marked a thin line with a pencil. Then he picked up the saw. "This," he continued, "is Ketsudan." Ethan frowned. "What does that mean?" Ketsudan means decisive determination. Literally, it means to cut and decide. Once the blade moves, alternatives disappear. He pushed the saw forward. The sound was sharp, final, a real decision. Kenji said, "Removes the emotional escape route. Most people think they decide. They don't. They negotiate with themselves." Ethan felt exposed. A neuroscientist at the University of Tokyo, who had studied cognitive commitment for 12 years, discovered that when a person makes a firm, irreversible choice, mental noise decreases. The brain stops debating. Energy returns to action. Normal people consider. They keep options open to protect comfort. That night, at exactly 10:24 p.m., Ethan stared at the game app on his phone. His thumb hovered. "Just weekends," his mind suggested. "Just less time," he heard Kenji's voice in his memory. "Once you cut, you cut." At 10:26 p.m., he deleted it. Then he set a 10:30 p.m. shutdown alarm. No negotiation. It was small, but it was final. For the first time in years, Ethan did not try to change. He decided. At 10:30 p.m. the alarm went off. The first night, Ethan felt restless. The apartment was too quiet. His mind searched for stimulation, but he kept the phone face down on the kitchen counter and went to bed. The next morning at 6:40 a.m., he woke 20 minutes earlier than usual. Not because he felt inspired, because he had decided. That evening he told Kenji. Kenji nodded once. "Now you practice Kaizen." "Kaizen?" Ethan asked. "It means continuous improvement. Literally, change for better. Not dramatic change, not emotional change, small, steady adjustment." Kenji held up a chair leg he had been restoring for weeks. "I don't rebuild it in one day. I remove roughness slowly. Each pass is small, but it compounds." The deeper meaning settled in. Transformation is not powered by intensity. It is powered by consistency. A performance researcher at Kyoto University, who studied microhabits for 15 years, discovered that small repeated actions strengthen identity faster than extreme effort. The brain collects evidence. Evidence becomes belief. So Ethan protected his 20 minutes. No grand life overhaul. He spent them learning digital strategy for the side business he had postponed for years. Some mornings were focused. Some were sluggish. Normal people wait for a new year, for Monday, for motivation. Ethan adjusted daily. Cause created effect. Small action reduced resistance. Resistance reduced doubt. Doubt weakened. He was not chasing a breakthrough. He was becoming someone who improves. For 3 weeks the rhythm held. 10:30 p.m. shutdown. 6:40 a.m. wake up. 20 minutes of focused work. It was not dramatic. It was steady. Ethan felt a quiet stability forming, almost fragile but real. Then the stressful week arrived. A major client threatened to cancel. Meetings ran late. By Thursday night, Ethan was drained. At 11:52 p.m., he sat on his bed with his phone in his hand. "You deserve a break," his mind whispered. At 12:37 a.m., He was still scrolling. At 1:48 a.m., he knew exactly what he was doing. At 2:03 a.m., he felt the old familiar shame. The next morning he overslept, missed his 20 minutes. The old voice returned. "See, this is who you are." That evening he walked into Kenji's workshop, shoulders tight. "I messed it up," Ethan said quietly. Kenji examined a cracked porcelain bowl on his table. "This is wabi-sabi," he said. Wabi-sabi means finding beauty in imperfection. Literally, it honors the incomplete, the flawed, the worn. He traced the crack gently. Progress always carries visible scars. The crack does not cancel the structure. Then Kenji shared something he had never told Ethan before. After losing his business, he avoided rebuilding for years. He felt humiliated. "I thought one failure erased my worth," he said. It didn't. Normal people relapse and quit. The next morning, Ethan reset the alarm. No drama, no self-hatred, just continuation. The morning after the relapse did not feel triumphant. It felt ordinary. The alarm rang at 6:40 a.m. Ethan stared at the ceiling for a moment. The shame from the night before lingered. But it was quieter now. He swung his legs off the bed anyway. No internal speech. No negotiation, just movement. Later that week, as the routine stabilized again, Kenji introduced the next principle. "Now," he said, brushing sawdust from his hands, "you build Shinrai." "What does that mean?" Ethan asked. Shinrai means trust, specifically self-trust. Literally, it is reliance based on proven reliability. You do not trust yourself because you feel confident. You trust yourself because you have evidence. The deeper meaning was uncomfortable. Affirmations were easy. Evidence required repetition. A clinical psychologist at UCLA who studied self-efficacy for 20 years discovered that confidence does not emerge from positive thinking. It emerges from accumulated proof that you keep your word to yourself. Kenji leaned closer. "Every time you keep a small promise, you lay a brick. Every time you break one, you remove a brick." So Ethan began tracking quietly. A small notebook. Check marks for each 10:30 shutdown. Each 6:40 wake-up, each 20-minute session completed. Normal people chase motivation. Ethan collected proof. He stopped saying, "I hope I'll change." He caught himself one morning thinking, without effort, "I am someone who decides." The shift was subtle, but it was real. The identity shift did not announce itself. It revealed itself in small, observable ways. 3 months later, during a Monday strategy meeting, Ethan noticed something unusual. His manager challenged his proposal. In the past, he would have withdrawn, replayed the criticism in his head for hours. This time, he paused. He felt his heartbeat, slower than before. "I see your point," he replied calmly. "Here's why I chose this direction." No defensiveness, no apology for existing. Normal people react emotionally, protecting ego in the moment. Ethan responded deliberately. He no longer needed to protect an insecure identity. He was becoming someone stable. Outside of work, the change continued. When his girlfriend avoided another difficult conversation about their future, he did not postpone it. One evening at 8:15 p.m., sitting at the kitchen table, he said quietly, "We need to decide what this is becoming." There was tension. There was discomfort. But there was no avoidance. Ketsudan had taught him to cut in decision. Kaizen had built daily strength. Wabi-sabi had removed fear of imperfection. Shinrai had given him evidence. The 20-minute morning sessions had grown naturally into 45. Not forced, not dramatic. And then, without fanfare, he launched his freelance side project online. No announcement to friends, no countdown. He did it because he had decided. The drift was gone. Direction had replaced it. The change did not stay contained within Ethan. One Sunday afternoon, his younger cousin Sophia called him. She was 18, anxious about choosing a college major. "I feel stuck," she admitted. "What if I choose wrong?" Ethan recognized the tone. He had lived inside it for years. "You're not choosing your entire life," he told her calmly. "You're choosing your next step. Decide. Then improve. Adjust if needed." There was a pause on the line. "You seem different," she said softly. Less unsure. After the call, Ethan sat quietly. That sentence meant more than any promotion. Later that week in the workshop, he repeated it to Kenji. Kenji smiled faintly. "One decision changes your direction," he said. 1,000 small decisions change your destiny." The words felt earned now. Ethan no longer feared hard conversations. He expected them. When discomfort appeared, he did not interpret it as danger. He interpreted it as a signal that growth was near. Normal people wait until fear disappears before acting. Ethan acted while fear was present. The drift that once defined him had been replaced by deliberate movement. Not dramatic, not loud, but consistent. He was no longer trying to become someone decisive. He simply was. By the time Ethan stood alone in his apartment one quiet evening, the system was no longer theory. It was lived experience. Ketsudan had taught him to decide in a way that removes emotional escape. A real decision cuts alternatives. It ends negotiation. Kaizen had shown him that improvement does not need intensity. It needs consistency. Small daily upgrades compound into identity. Wabi-sabi had freed him from perfection. Imperfection was not proof of failure. It was evidence of construction. Shinrai had rebuilt what drift had eroded. Self-trust is earned by keeping promises to yourself, repeatedly, quietly. Nothing magical had happened. His life had not exploded into overnight success, but the direction had changed, and direction determines destination. Now ask yourself, what decision have you been postponing out of fear? What small action could make that decision irreversible today? Who would you become if you trusted your own word? You are not weak. You were using the wrong system. Comment your first small decisive step below. Subscribe and activate the notification bell so you do not miss the next lesson. Share this with someone standing at the edge of a hard choice. Be present. Walk with honor. Follow the path.